In a text exchange leaked to the US media yesterday, the President can be seen telling the Prime Minister of Norway he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace, his words not mine, and appeared to show he was motivated to take over Greenland after being snubbed for the Nobel Peace Prize. Here is the text message sent from President Trump to Eunice Garstira, voiced by one of the production team.
Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there 100 years ago, but we have boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT.
Now, what he seems to unfortunately ignore is the fact that the Norway government has absolutely no way of influencing or way of determining who is going to be in receipt of the Nobel Peace Prize, something that I read he has been told on past occasions and he's chosen to ignore. Now, speaking this morning before boarding Air Force One, President Trump now claims he doesn't care about this prize.
No, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. First of all, a very fine woman felt that I deserved it and really wanted me to have the Nobel Prize, and I appreciate that. If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway, and I don't care what Norway says. But I really don't care about that. What I care about is saving lives. And I think I've saved tens of millions of lives.
So you don't care about it, Mr. President, and then you go on to tell us all how it actually works. Can I put it to you that perhaps it does rankle a little bit? He also addressed that Greenland issue more widely, telling reporters he would be speaking about it with European leaders in Davos this week.
We have to have it. They have to have this done. They can protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there. And, you know, because the boat went there 500 years ago and then left, that doesn't give you title to property. So we'll be talking about it with the various people. We've had tremendous success, and I've done more for NATO than anybody else. I don't think you'd have NATO right now. I got them to go 5% and pay as opposed to 2% and not pay. I've done more than any other American president for NATO by far. And we'll see how that goes, but Greenland is very important.
So that's the president shouting over the engines of Air Force One just about winning, but he's been busy on social media as well. He shared a private post from Emmanuel Macron, well, private no longer, of course, in which Monsieur Macron's message reads as follows: "My friend, we are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I do not understand what you're doing on Greenland. Let us try to build great things. 1. I can set up a G7 meeting after Davos in Paris on Thursday afternoon. I can invite the Ukrainians, the Danish, the Syrians, and the Russians in the margins." You'll note no British involvement. 2. Let us have dinner in Paris together on Thursday before you go back to the US. So that's a private post, which is now, of course, known to the world. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, again on social media, has let us know, and I quote, "I've had a very good telephone call with Mark Rutte, the Secretary-General of NATO, concerning Greenland. I agreed to a meeting of the various parties in Davos, Switzerland. As I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back." He goes on to say, and I'll say where they are, "We are the only, quote, caps power that can ensure peace throughout the world, and it is done quite simply through strength," signed the President. And then the most recent, unless there's been one while I've been speaking in the last 20 minutes or so, it concerns the United Kingdom. Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so, and capitals here, for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. These are international powers who only recognise capital's strength which is why the United States of America, under my leadership, is now, after only 1 year, respected like never before. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of capital's great stupidity, and another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Denmark and its European allies have to do the right thing. He signs off, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." But that's a social media. That's what you normally do if you're writing to your bank because they haven't paid a direct debit. Where do we go? Where do we start? Is it an act of great stupidity? Do you imagine that some peace can break out in Davos? Where do you want to start with Donald J. Trump? It was already... We don't want to completely Trump you out here. How would you characterise what we heard almost a day ago, Sir Ed? Morning to you.
Yeah, morning, Nick. I mean, on one level, I have sympathy with the Prime Minister. Traditionally, the UK has been strong when we've had a strong relationship with the White House and with Europe, and we've managed both those. And we've, over the decades, it's been really important to us. But I think you just have to accept it. It's like having a reality TV show host in the White House. This man is unhinged. And I think the only way you're going to deal with this person is realizing we need a different approach. And I think the Prime Minister's approach is been proven to be wrong, to be honest. We've had a year of this president. I think appeasing, fawning, trying to persuade him, I regret to say, I don't think it's worked. And I think you're going to have to stand up to him. And that's what we've been saying. He's a bully. We've got to work with our allies, as difficult as it is, and say no to Donald.
And what does that, quote, standing up look like, Sir Ed?
Well, it's not doing what the Prime Minister did yesterday. For example, the Europeans and others have said, look, if he does put tariffs on, we will regrettably look at retaliatory tariffs. We'll fight back. Now, no one wants that. No one wants a trade war. Everyone loses. But we've got to stand up to him in those ways. And the Prime Minister's almost taken those off the table. And I think you've got to work with your partners, really. And remember, the midterm elections are just around the corner. He's doing dreadfully in the polls. He's had a lot of pressure, even from his own side. So I think he's much weaker than he would like to admit to. And I think, therefore, working with our partners, we can stand up to him and get him to stop. He's backed down before.
You're right to point to those midterms, Sir Ed. There is a characterisation that, as you rightly say, he's not doing well. If his party performs badly, he's effectively neutered. That's why he's trying to get everything he possibly can done this side of the midterms. How accurate a depiction is that in your view?
Yeah, and I've heard that, we have to be ready for that. However, if he breaks the law and goes against American opinion, which he is. I mean, most Americans think he's totally wrong on Venezuela and Greenland and so on. If he loses the Senate and the House of Representatives in the midterms, they will impeach him. So he's also got to think about that. He's got to think about the backlash if he keeps breaking the law and going against American opinion, let alone British and European opinion.
Last minute or so together, 2 questions. Would you support trade wars?
No one wants trade wars, but you have to stand tough, and you cannot take retaliatory tariffs on the table. I've been saying for a long time, Nick, we need alternatives. That's why I've argued for, a new UK-EU customs union, so we can grow our trade elsewhere if we have to see this protectionist president tearing up the rule book and putting tariffs on our industries.
Final question. We were going to speak on the Board of Peace. These texts and social media posts have happened overnight. Just a quick word on that. The idea that the Kremlin could join Russia could join President Trump's Board of Peace. Sir Ed Davey.
It shows how Donald Trump is so out of control. On one level, he's saying, Russia's a threat in the Arctic. He has to have Greenland. And then he's putting Putin on a Board of Peace. I mean, come on. That's totally incoherent. And, it's laughable. And that's why he's no more than a bad reality TV show host.